Alright, hey guys, so right now it's actually time to take out the device that I'm going to use to shape the nut for this Telecaster here. And as I mentioned in the previous video, it's a nut and saddle shaping vise which I bought from GMC Luthier Tools based in the UK. And it's a really great jig to create a nut in, and it's easy and simple. So the very first thing that we have to do here, I've just peeled back some of the masking tape over here so we don't get any difference in height. Not that the tape is going to cause much, but just in case. And right now it's actually time to gauge the nut slot, the height of the nut slot. And we're going to use the jig for that. This jig right here, and the way this works is that we have two metal plates here, and the one inside here is going to slide up and down. So with the protruding pins here, protruding pins, with them facing the fretboard, I'm going to place it on the fretboard and then let the other half sink down. So we'll kind of, get an idea of how much we'll have to go down in order to clamp this vise in and have the height of the nut. So let me just try and zoom in here so you can hopefully get an idea of what I'm doing. So let me just move back the camera a little bit. We can zoom in here. Hopefully you'll see that. So I'll place it on the fretboard with the one end, and as you see here, I'll just let it sink in. And I'll just have to check if everything is as good as gets. And it seems like it. So this is kind of, you have to make sure that you have matched it up. And yeah, so I think it's right about there. And then I have to tighten some of the lug nuts over here on the other side. As you can see, they're right here. I have to tighten those in to keep the height locked in now. And as you can see here, it's actually not much of a height difference we have, so it's not that much of a nut that actually hold the nut itself in the slot. But we've gauged it now and it's correctly. So I can actually now start taking my bone blank out and see where we're at, and fit a radius call over here to make sure that we shape the right radius on the nut, so we have a curved radius matching the fretboard. So yeah, that should be the next project. So I'm just going to make sure one more time, guys, that I have gauged this out correctly. But this is how you do it with the GMC Luthier Tools nut shaping vise. So as I said, I'm going to run over it one more time, make sure I get everything lined up correctly and gauged correctly. And I'm going to cut the video, and when I return, we're going to take a look at the nut blank, because we have to see if we have to sand it down in order to get it to fit nice and snug in here in the nut slot. And from there, it's basically time to put it in the nut vise and shape it from there. So stay tuned, guys. Alright, guys, so now that we have gauged out the depth of the nut slot up here on the guitar, and we have locked it in on the jig here, we're actually ready to move over to take a look at the nut blank itself that we're going to use. And I have a standard nut blank here, which is just cow bone. I bought this from Thomann in Germany, and it's a great piece, and it looks very nice, and even when we are finished shaping the nut, we're going to polish it up and it's going to look like marble, and it's going to be really shiny. So before we get into clamping this nut blank in the jig, we have to establish a couple of things first. We have to, in order to make this easier for ourselves when we have to do this, I like to take out my digital caliper here, and I like to insert it up here in the nut slot and actually gauge out the thickness of the nut slot. And right now I have 3.49, and I know this is going to be the thickness of the nut here. So I like to take my caliper and place it on the nut and then just scrape it across so I get a line. And I have already done this. I don't know if you are able to see it. No. Oh, there you go. A little line all across, as you can see, and I've done it on the two sides as well, the short sides here. And this is just going to make it a lot easier for me to know when I kind of reach my the end point of where I have to be a little more cautious on fitting it on the nut and see how it fits. And I've just marked the other side here, as you can see. I've just written sand on it and kind of just drawn across it, because this is the side that I'm going to sand when I put on the sandpaper. So this side will be facing down as I slide it on the sandpaper. So that's just an easy indication of you knowing what side you have to use. And this nut blank here is, I would say, at least double the size of this nut slot, so we have to file down a lot. And I really wish at this point that I had a belt sander or something like it that I could just fit it on and get it done quickly, but unfortunately I don't have any power tools here in my apartment, so I will have to do this with some rough grit of sandpaper. So I believe I'm going to use 180 and then switch up to 240, and when I get really close I might switch to 320 grit, and that's just going to make sure that with the 180 grit that I'm able to take off as much material as possible and still keeping the face flat and not crooked or tilted in any way. And the 240 is just to remove the scratches that the 180 made, and the 330 or 320 is just going to be to remove even more scratches and take off less material when I have to fit the nut even more, to make sure that I have a nice and snug fit up here. So I would definitely establish the lines here on the nut on all sides, and just put it up against the nut and see which side it fits best, and mark out the side that you're going to sand. So and right now we're just looking to take off the sides here, because we have to later on get it in when we have it fitted and draw around the nut to know what shape and size we will get it down to in the end. And I'm just going to get the material sanded off as quickly as possible, and then I'm going to fit it in the vise, and we're going to establish the radius for the strings here. So I'm going to show you some of that also, so you can see. But next thing that really remains is for me to sand this guy down here, and I might just show you a short segment here of what I tend to do and how I try to keep it square while I sand. But I guess a little thing I could show you here, just on the end here, I have this little machinist square or something like it at least, and I like to check that the nut blank is actually true and square. So I will fit this across here, and I will kind of look for any gaps, and right now I'm not getting any, so that's great. And I like to do it the same way just down here to see if I have any gaps, and we do not. So that's great. And I believe that most of these bone blanks here from Thomann are actually cut and you know, fitted down to being somewhat straight. Of course, you cannot assume this every time, but I always like to check with the machinist square and just make sure that we're good to go, so we don't get any nasty surprises when we actually have to fit the nut, because at that point it's just too late to go back. So make sure that you go through these steps here, and it's just going to make the process a lot easier because you know you have everything in order and you can just go ahead and sand. So remaining part is just to sand this down, and I'll bring you in when I get a little closer, guys. So I'll be right back.